Hello, everybody. You made it to the final session of day 2 of our fall virtual conference. I hope you've enjoyed all of our fantastic speakers. Thank you to all of them and had that takeaway you can apply to see greater success at your brewery. Huge thanks to Pneumatic Scale Angelus for all your support of CBP and for being our day 2 presenting sponsor. Thank you again. I'm excited to dive into our conversation on from grain to package. And I feel like I needed a beer in my hand right now, but first, let's meet all of our guests. And Mike, because you are to the right of me, you get to begin with the introduction.
Hi, Mike Davis. I'm the product line leader and technology leader for Pneumatic Scale Angelus. I've been working with the craft beverage community and team here for the past 3 years.
Great to see you again, Mike. Elden, you're up.
I'm Elden Rowland, and I've been for the last 5 years with Pneumatic Scale Angelus doing service and support. And most recently, I've been doing the sales on the East Coast. So I'll still approach it kind of as a service guy because that's what I know most. But it's nice to still be connected with all the people I know over the years. So.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Elden. And Alex with ABS Commercial, really appreciate all your support as well. Where in the world are you, Alex, and what do you do?
So I'm based in Raleigh, North Carolina. I am the Midwest sales rep. Also, I guess you'd call it kind of our executive brewer. So we have a sister company, Raleigh Brewing Company, which is a 20-barrel production brewery that I helped open and then pivoted to the equipment side. So sales, consulting, helping people brew.
I can only imagine how you balance your time.
Yeah, it's
absolutely. That says it all.
A lot of cats.
Dan, very excited to have you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm Dan MacKinnon, one of the owners, and I don't know title-wise, head brewer, fixes a lot of stuff kind of guy at MacKinnon Brothers Brewing. We're a farm-based brewery in just outside of Kingston, Ontario, which for anyone who doesn't know where that is halfway between Toronto and Montreal, just on the north side of Lake Ontario.
So Dan, owners wear so many hats. What is your least favorite job to handle at the brewery?
Oh, managing people. It's brutal. I just want to fix things and make them run more efficiently and not deal with everybody's crap. But we've actually got a really awesome team here. So luckily I hardly have to do any of that stuff. So we're in good shape.
Awesome. Well, it looks amazing where your brewery is. For anyone listening after the fact, Google MacKinnon Brothers Brewing. The land is gorgeous, and I know your family has been on that property for quite some time. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like to start the business? And I've heard you literally built the brewery from the ground up.
Yeah, so the farm's been in our family since 1784. So there's a lot of heritage there. It's important to my brother and I to kind of keep that going. The farm, yeah, it's pretty picturesque, but the land up here isn't the absolute best. So it can kind of be tough to make a living for more than one family anyway, just farming. So we thought we would do something value added. We thought about a distillery or a brewery, and with some draconian laws up here in Canada, the tax benefits are a lot better on beer. So that kind of swayed us in that direction. We obviously have a love for beer as well, but also of whiskey. So we were both doing different jobs. I was a brewer over in England, and my brother was a mechanical engineer at Kellogg's. So we had a lot of the kind of basics covered to kind of get things going. And there was an old kind of abandoned barn on the farm that we said, this is small enough and manageable enough. And we started kind of fixing it up as we were working on the farm still. We both quit our jobs and came back here, and there was a point I think I'd just put the concrete floor in this. It had just been a dirt floor barn, and I was like, oh man, I'm like $4,000 into this. I guess there's no turning back now. And so yeah, we just kind of I grew it, slowly but surely with a lot of community support. And in terms of like the bars and restaurants, taking a chance and putting our beer on tap, being a new brewery, local friends and family, just helping out wherever they can. My buddy's an electrician or a plumber, always happy to lend a hand. And and the main focus of the brewery is that we use ingredients from our farm. and other local farms to kind of make unique and delicious beer. So it's really integrated into the local rural farming community around here.
It sounds awesome. And I'm going to go back 1 second. When you and your brother told your family that you wanted to add a brewery to your family farm that's been there since 1784, did I get that right?
Yeah.
So how did they respond when you dropped that one on them?
Well, at that point, it was mostly just my dad who was kicking around here, and we bought a chunk of the farm off of him so we could do it, so he could kind of retire. So he was actually pretty thrilled about the whole thing because he had us coming back to take over the farm. He got some money to retire, and it also kind of, if anyone's ever worked with family, the more separate it can be sometimes, the better. So they were all pretty enthused. They always would say, "Oh, can you imagine if great grandpa could see this," kind of thing. So yeah, everyone, including the family, was pretty happy and pretty supportive of the idea. They
have to be really proud of what you've created.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Alex, let's go to you for a minute. We really appreciate ABS Commercial, and thank you again for presenting day one of our virtual conference and joining this panel. So the ABS Commercial homepage places emphasis on the fact that you're in the business of being a Brewhouse outfitters because you're brewers first. Why is it so important to you and the ABS team that you lead with that point on your website and in your company charter?
I would say it really is where we came from. So ABS Commercial was actually formed a decade ago this year. When we were opening our own brewery, we couldn't find equipment that met both our quality, and budget needs. So kind of like most brewers and do-it-yourselfers, we did it ourselves. And so really both the two companies formed at the same time. And over the years, we've really learned that, using your equipment every day is by far the best way to design equipment. There's a lot of stuff that might look good on paper, but when you're touching it every single day, little things that can, seem like minor annoyances, become bigger issues. And we've also realized that we have a lot to give back to the brewing community because we bootstrapped everything and we've made a lot of mistakes. We've, figured out a lot of fixes. And we realized it's kind of a waste to not share that experience, that knowledge. So when we're working with new breweries, even if I might not know the answer to some questions, we have taproom managers. We have, our controller, like we can really cover the full gamut of questions that brewers have. And our goal is to really provide shortcuts. We've learned a lot of stuff the hard way. And we want other people to benefit from that experience.
In a way, what you're doing is so similar to what Dan's doing from grain into glass. You're literally building the brew house from the ground up and testing it yourself.
Yep, exactly. And that's our goal. Whenever we design something new, we stress test it in-house before it gets released in the wild.
So you mentioned that you work at Raleigh Brewing in the brew house sometimes. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I was the head brewer and production manager for just like the first 5 years or so. And then when we moved out, we lived in Denver for a while. So that's when I pivoted to the equipment side. And honestly, I also do all of our brew house commissioning. So whenever we sell a brew house, I'll go out, brew the first couple batches with them, make sure they know how the system operates, that kind of thing. And again, kind of share the shortcuts and things that we figured out over the years. So it's, as Dan mentioned, brewing is really fixing and problem solving 90% of the time. So that's really what I enjoy doing. And, going into new breweries, there's always something new to fix. So it's a lot of fun.
Now, Alex, because you
come
started
down here and have a look at our place, maybe I can get a couple
Hey,
points.
I just saw the website. I'll definitely take you up on that.
We should have done this panel live on site. That was amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Now we know.
Yeah, next time.
So, Alex, looking at all you do, is there any lessons learned you could share of a piece of equipment or brew house that you built, you tested it, that didn't quite go as planned, that you learned from that way when you put it out to others, it was in the condition you were proud of?
I mean, I would say really our brew house design has evolved over the years. And a lot of it is simple, like piping design and like how to integrate things in a way that makes sense, eliminates the need to run soft hose, that kind of thing. So the brew house we have in our brewery now is actually the third one that we've had. That is definitely a luxury that we have. But it's kind of that focus on continuing to optimize. Brewing, it's an old technology. There's, only so many ways to skin the cat, but it's really about kind of finessing those things and optimizing your time. So our goal is to keep things simple, but integrated and efficient.
Awesome. Very cool. Thanks for sharing that. Now, Mike, Pneumatic Scale Angelus isn't quite as old as Dan's family farm, but you all have been around for some time, haven't you?
Yeah, we've been doing can seaming for quite a while. Angelus has been around since the early 1900s. I think we have over 16,000 rotary seamers and worldwide operating today. Pneumatic Scale itself has been around almost as long, doing filling and capping and other packaging equipment. So, I've been focused on the craft beverage side for the past 3 years, but I've been in packaging and pneumatic scale for over 20. So
wow. And you guys have roots in high-speed beverage canning. So what makes a company like Pneumatic Scale Angelus so well known in high-speed applications decide to get into the craft beer space?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. We had kept our eye on the craft community there for a little while prior to 2016, where we introduced our first seamer. But really what spurred us to get into it was, our relationships with the can makers. They started reaching out to us and like, hey, you guys really should help these people out. Early on, the equipment was producing some bad seams, and they thought with our extensive experience and background, we could really help out the community. So we took our high-speed seaming technology and sized it appropriately for the craft community with our single head seamer, and then quickly followed with our filling technology after that.
Awesome. And what's been the response so far in the industry?
I mean, in 6 years, we've done pretty well.
Oh my gosh.
We've expanded all the way from just that little single head seamer to a full line of atmospheric and counter pressure fillers, all the way through our CB100C that we introduced at CBC this past year. So that's our rotary counter pressure filler. So Dan has a counter pressure filler of ours. Alex at Raleigh Brewing, they have one of our 50Fs, our atmospheric fillers. So yeah, the response has been really nice.
That's fantastic. Now, Elden, it's your turn. Prior to your current role in sales with PSA, you've had a long time providing service and training to brewers, as well as managing the packaging operations at another brewery. What do you think some of the most challenging aspects of tackling the packaging operations within a brew house are?
Well, I think we've probably touched on some of this stuff, but from my perspective, it seems like if you're trying to elevate your craft, right? So Dan can understand this. If you're making your art and you want it to be as good as it can be, the industry has kind of provided certain answers for a lot of things, right? So from the brew house through cellaring, and even in packaging, there's some stuff. But I think where we come into play is we bring it, kind of up to the higher standards. We're providing, the quality of build that you need. What Alex is providing is not only, quality of build, but they're also, training you and getting you to kind of align what you're doing already or what you want to do with what their equipment can do. So it's kind of the same thing for us. Early on in craft beverage, it seems like the challenge wasn't to make something that was good necessarily, or that you were proud of. I think the challenge was to educate the consumer on what you were doing and why it was better and why it was worth giving it a shot. So I think our success kind of comes from first that, we come from a long line of experience. Our technology is kind of above par when it comes to inline equipment. But also, our service and our support, part of the reason why we are successful is because we're educating, people that maybe are the best brewers, but maybe don't necessarily have much of a focus on packaging. And not to say that's wrong, but that is, in our mind, that's as equally as important as some of the other aspects in the brewery. So it's really about, educating and communicating all the things that are important with that final step with packaging,
And Elden, that's a great point you just made. Often brewers are super confident on the Brewhouse side, but they might get a little intimidated about the concept of running their own canning line. What's your advice for those considering making the leap from brewing to taking on the packaging?
Well, I mean, I guess it's just like anything else. You wouldn't want to hand off your control to someone that you may or may not trust, or something that you're not sure of, So, I mean, it could be anything. It could be marketing. It could be front of house. I think that's the misconception maybe with the smaller companies that are making craft beverages, that people think it's a mom and pop, or it's it's kind of like a side hustle or something. But this is, these people are more than capable. They're always hustling. And, packaging is, from our perspective, from the pneumatic scale perspective, it's kind of, something that we've been doing for a while, but it is new to a lot of, customers that I talk with. And I think ultimately it's, when it comes to materials and liquid, it has to meet at the center, and we have to have some consistency, because, if you make your product that goes into a keg, arguably the best packaged beer has ever been created, right? A refillable, cleanable keg. The second best thing is a can. And that's, to me, if you can do it the right way, then if you drink a tap beer from a restaurant, then it should taste the same in a can, whether you buy it, at the restaurant next door or from stayed away at a grocery store. It should be the same. And that's gold. Brand loyalty is a big deal. So
Absolutely. And you mentioned education. You're not going to let someone just kind of go on their own. Your PSA is going to send someone out there, I imagine, or at least help them along the way to feel comfortable with that equipment. Is that true, Elden and Mike? And what's that process like?
Yeah, I mean, Elden can speak to it firsthand. He had several years in our service department, but and Dan can speak to the support that he received during his startup. It goes hand in hand. Like Elden mentioned, the brewers, they're really good at brewing. Packaging may be a necessary evil, and maybe they've been dealing with it through a mobile canner that's kind of taking the ownership of the packaging line, and now it's on them. So education and getting that partnership with the brewer is key.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Now, Dan and Alex, what was your experience like when you went from brewing to also taking on a little bit of packaging responsibilities at your facilities?
I would say, the primary thing, to kind of touch on what Elden was saying, unfortunately, I think for a lot of brewers, packaging is not sexy. The really evil truth is that once you get to the packaging point, all you're doing is trying to make it less bad. So it's almost like this bell curve of, you put all this time and effort to make a perfect product, and then once you get into the packaging side, you're on the downswing. And as Elden said, there's a lot of times it can kind of be an afterthought, and it is kind of intimidating. There's a lot of technology and, moving pieces to it. But in my opinion, it's as, if not more important than the brewing process, because that really is your interface with the customer. I honestly don't really care what your beer tastes like in the bright tank, because that's not what, your customer is tasting. So yeah, I think there is an element where people see it as a necessary evil, but it is an art, and it should be kind of appreciated as such.
I definitely respect that. Dan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously super integral to the business, and especially as your business grows. Yeah, like Elden said, a lot of brewers, they think about the probably you see this a lot, Alex, is like everyone wants to talk about the brewing equipment, the mash tun, lauter tun. No one wants to think about a boiler or a chiller or a canning line or any of the stuff that's not fun to think about right off the start. But when you do get, like, having worked on a few different canning lines myself, and when you do get like a, a canning line and it's working well, and you're putting, to your point, Alex, when you're putting a product in a package that you're confident isn't going to go down the bell curve very quickly, your dissolved oxygen levels are low, the beer's nice, got a nice fob on it, the cans are filled to the right height, the seams are good, and you're like, that's one headache I'm not going to have to hopefully worry about in 6 weeks or whatever. So it's one of those kind of good feelings, just like making improvement in the brew house, or having the canning line dialed right in and working great, is just one of those good feeling days working in a brewery.
It's absolutely something to be proud of. And Dan, so when I travel, I love to visit breweries that look just like yours. I love finding that random farm brewery where I'm going to learn that the owner built it from the ground up. They have the grains, right next door, where they can just show you everything that's taking place in one spot. And you all literally embody the concept of grain to package, from growing your own ingredients to brewing, multiple beers at a time, to packaging the final product for distribution. You all do it all. So what does the concept of grain to package mean to you?
Well, for us, it just seemed like it made the most amount of sense. Like, we want to kind of diversify, make ourselves, and diversify ourselves from the other breweries in the area, make a more unique product. I mean, lots of people can make really awesome beers. Well, most of the malts kind of supplied by the same sort of suppliers. So it gives us, another weapon in our arsenal of things to make our beer more unique, and taste a little bit different, and maybe taste a little bit better. And it just, being on a farm, it's like, why wouldn't we get the grain from here if we can? And obviously the malting process needs to happen. So I got to give a shout out to our partners at Barn Owl Malt, who are a little malting outfit that is just about half hour's drive from here. So, I mean, from an environmental perspective too, it's really great, because the grain's not traveling that far, and to that point, neither is our beer. Like, it's staying more or less within 100 kilometers of about 60 miles there of the brewery. So just kind of like something that we can be proud of. Like, my grandfather worked hard on the farm so he could pass it down to us. My brother and I wanted to build something that we could be proud of and had some longevity, and really incorporated the farm into it, and expanded the farm in a sense. And yeah, that's where the brewery came in.
Awesome. And craft beer is so much about relationships. So Dan, how do you use from the grain until pack to package, messaging to connect deeper with your community of craft beer drinkers?
Well, the best way to do it, because there's a lot of farm breweries where they're just on a farm, which is fine, or it's in a rural area. Our best way to connect with our customers is getting them to actually come to our brewery. So we have we started out like the first year just to say thanks to everyone who kind of helped us get the brewery going. And thankfully, being on a farm, we've got like a lot of space. We thought we'd have a little party and just invite everyone and have some food and music, and everyone who helped us kind of get some beer and food and music. And then other people started asking, "Oh, I heard you're having a party. Like, how do we get tickets for this music and stuff?" And we're like, "Oh, maybe we should sell some tickets." So it's kind of snowballed, and now every year we've got I think this past year it was almost 7,000 people. So we have a music festival at the
Oh
farm.
my gosh, 7,000 people.
And everybody comes out and they can see that, oh, this is a real farm. Give tours around, they can see the hops. They can see one of the fields, like we don't grow barley in the same field. Yeah, they can see the fields and kind of really get a feel for the place. All the bar and restaurant staff who we deal with, they all get free tickets to come out as a kind of say thank you for selling our beer at theirs. But just generally day to day, having customers stop by, having a little tour, chatting with them face to face, and hopefully they're kind of our best salespeople, spreading the word around about the brewery and hopefully they had a good time and they'll tell other people about it.
I'm still extremely impressed that you have an event with 7,000 people at your brewery.
Yeah, it's a lot of beer, that's for sure.
I can't imagine they imagined that, in the 1700s, that someday you'd be hosting Music Fest with your own beer on tap. That's definitely something to be proud of. Now, looking at all of you, the grain to package concept, it's so intriguing, and you all are at it from some sort of unique but different perspective. I'd love to hear each of your views on why the idea of taking charge of your whole life cycle is so important for brewers to consider. And at this point, the floor is anybody's who wants to jump into this fun question.
I would say, so I actually got my start in the industry I was a sustainable ag major in college and started working on vineyards. So that kind of clued me into, fermentation, and not really a wine drinker. So I pivoted to beer, and the rest is history. But I think it's kind of unfortunate that beer is not really considered, with wine, we cherish vintages and terroir, and beer is, I would argue, more of an agricultural product than wine, even because you have multiple raw ingredients, and yet we're typically trying to homogenize our product, which is even more difficult, rather than embrace kind of those seasonal variations, that kind of thing. So I really applaud what Dan is doing, because in my mind, that is very true to kind of the spirit of craft, controlling every variable possible, and really embracing beer as an agricultural product.
Yeah, I really respect it as well. He's just taking charge of so many aspects of running the business, and it creates a phenomenal final product. Mike and Elden, I'd love to hear your thoughts from your angle and just the whole concept of grain to package and why you love it when breweries can embrace it.
Yeah, I would say that for us, it helps to have, from the beginning through the brewing process, through the brew house, and then into our machine, going through that brew house, being able to produce a quality, consistent product. When you're talking about machinery and automated packaging, consistency is the key. So, taking that, what happens in the farm that may not be, same from year to year and yield to yield, being able to produce the same quality beer, and then hopefully we can help out by keeping that quality in the can and make it all the way to the consumer.
And Elden, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I guess I'll come from like a consumer side of things, but from my experience, when people are pushing this concept, it's a nice narrative, but it doesn't necessarily drink as well, right? And I'm not trying to come negative at this. I want to say that MacKinnon Brothers, they're not only doing this, but they're doing it well, and arguably some of the best, of this kind of product available. So yeah, it's already harder to do, right? So it's easy to go and purchase your grains and your hops from where everybody else does, and kind of get your allotment for the year and do your thing and plan things out. But they're taking a risk, but it's paying off. I think it's awesome.
Awesome. I completely agree. Now
Thanks,
today,
Elden.
Dan, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to say thanks, Elden, for the compliments. Glad you like the beer, buddy.
I do, bud. I do.
Well, today we're joined by both Pneumatic Scale Angelus and ABS Commercial, but equally doing great but different things in the industry. How did you two connect and form the partnership?
Well, from our end, it really started with the canning line. We, our brewery, we were mobile canning like a lot of people for a long time. Even when they're really dialed in, some of those, not to name names, but some of those style kind of inline canning lines just weren't really up to what our expectations were. And again, knowing how pivotal that canning seeming process is for the quality of your product and the consumer experience. PS Angelus was just kind of the premier unit out there in the craft world. So we kind of just gravitated that way. I think we were pretty early on. It's been an absolute workhorse for us. So with that, if it's not something that we do, we try to align ourselves with the best. It's kind of, again, what we expect for our brewery is what we want to be able to provide to our customers. So that's kind of where we approached it.
Awesome. I love seeing a good partnership. Mike, what are your thoughts on that? Why is a partnership like this important to a PSA?
Yeah, I think along the same lines as what Alex was mentioning, we align with craft brewing because of quality. The brewers have quality in mind. We have quality in mind. Alex and ABS has quality in mind. So through having some upstream partnership with ABS, we can assure that we're getting that consistent quality from the brewer to our machine that makes everybody's lives a lot easier and a lot happier.
Awesome. Well, I love seeing some of my favorite people work together. It just makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Now, we've talked about a lot of really great concepts today, but, looking at all of you and the different roles that you have in the industry, I'd love to just go around in a circle and one final question and hear what you're most proud of. Whether it's something, Dan, you're doing on the farm, or Mike, a customer relationship that you have, or something that you're doing at PSA. I'd love to hear something that, at the end of the day, right before you go to bed, while you're probably sipping on your final beer of the night, just what makes you feel good about what you do.
Well, for me, probably a lot like you, Alex. You guys were talking about your brewers and you kind of do it yourself type people. And when you make one of those improvements, whether it be adding a canning line, your own canning line, getting it running and seeing all the canned beer coming off and in the cooler and ready to go for sale, or something as small as like adding something to the canning line or making the process more efficient, or, so your staff can go home half an hour earlier and are having more enjoyable, easier time at their jobs. Anything to kind of make the process smoother, making better quality beer in an easier, better way. Like that just, lets me sleep easy at night, puts a smile on my face, because I'm one of the guys in there working too. So, I reap all the benefits as well.
Awesome. And then you get to share it with 7,000 of your closest friends at your music festival.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to share, just what makes you so proud of what you do?
Yeah, for me, the team here we have at Pneumatic Scale Angelus is great. We've been able to introduce new innovations on our craft beverage product line almost every year. So we're always coming and hopefully leading the industry with our equipment. And then just the relationships that we have with that craft community. It's such a tight-knit community compared to some of our other customers that we deal with on the higher speed stuff. You get to know these people. You become friends. You acknowledge each other, and you see them each year at CBC, and sometimes more often than that. So it's been a lot of fun, getting to know all the people in the craft community.
You mean the other industries aren't as fun as craft beer?
Well,
I won't make you call any out.
I'll leave it at that.
There we go. Elden?
Well, I mean, I think Mike nailed it with that. It's really about the people that you get to work with, and it goes fast, but you spend, for me, it's often a week at a time when we're doing installs and commissioning, and I get to learn a bunch from them, and I get to see what they're doing and appreciate their side of what their approach is, and and then we continue the conversation later, and it's really fun to have them first name basis, and we joke around, and that's honestly the most fulfilling part of the job is having those connections and battling through some of the things aren't necessarily fun, but you get the satisfaction of figuring it out, and then one step forward and getting it right the next time. So yeah, it's a good time.
And that's so true. While you're helping with someone with their equipment, you're ultimately impacting their long-term success, which it's amazing.
And my own, right? If I don't stand by what I do or what I say, then I'm going to get a call every 2 minutes. And, that's not, I'd rather someone call and say, how's it going? How are your kids? Instead of, hey, blah, blah, you're not picking up the phone. That's not how we approach things. So it's easy if you put the work in the front side, it's easier on the back side for sure.
I think it can be said in every conversation we have about any topic in craft beer. We are definitely in the relationship business. And Alex, last but not least.
Yeah, very similar to Elden. I mean, my favorite part of the job is getting to do the Brewhouse commissionings and, brewing their first batch of beer. So much of it is about the relationship. I definitely feel like sometimes for those first brew days, I'm, part installer, part therapist. But I remember when we had our grand opening, everything's theoretical, like you haven't sold an ounce of beer yet. People are really stressed. They kind of don't know what they don't know. So being able to come in, help people in what is a very stressful time and, make that smooth transition, set them up for success. It's just a good feeling. And you do, you really forge some strong bonds with people, through that process. So.
Absolutely. No, is there anything else anyone would like to add? Or more so, if they're looking to get a hold of you with any questions or interested in learning more, how can they reach out?
For us, just you can find our website at abs-commercial.com. We've got a contact us sheet there. My email is alex@abs-commercial. Give us a shout.
Mike and Elden, how can they get in contact with Pneumatic Scale Angelus?
Yeah, you can give me a call at
Elden, we had someone do that one time.
I know. Yeah. My address and my personal information. No, it's we have obviously you can get online and get on the PSA website, and it'll direct you towards the craft beverage section, and you'll get a lot of information there. But we also are on Instagram and some other things, and
And for anyone listening, I just want to shout out to our partners, ABS and Pneumatic Scale Angelus. It's PSANGELUS.com. If you're driving the vehicle, we dropped it in the comments, and ABS-commercial.com. Well, I appreciate all this. I love these panel conversations. A huge thanks to Pneumatic Scale Angelus for being the sponsor of day 2 of our fall virtual conference and being a huge supporter and industry ambassador here with CBP. We greatly appreciate you. And next week, I'm actually going to be driving through Raleigh, North Carolina. So I'm excited to try the hard work of that partnership between Pneumatic Scale Angelus and ABS and Raleigh Brewing, all at once. I guess, Dan, I'll have to plan a trip up north of the border, and I look forward to visiting your beautiful family farm someday. So Mike, Elden, Alex, and Dan, thank you so much for the conversation today. I hope everybody's enjoyed day 2 of our fall virtual conference. We'll see everybody soon. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.